paint party people. This is Amanda Schmidt, and I'm super excited to be here today. And sorry, my doggy just came in the room. Hi. I'm painting cactuses today. I was really excited when Heidi asked me to do this project with you guys. I'm super excited to share any watercolor tidbits that I know. So yeah, it's fun. I love doing watercolor. I do teach paint parties. My business is called Snappy New Day Art. So I do acrylic stuff from time to time and for my parties, but I say that watercolor is my jam. It's my favorite. And so I do watercolor projects or watercolor workshops, I call them, for from time to time that uses kind of the same model, paint party model as acrylic, projects do. It's just a different medium. So if you ever have any questions about doing watercolor projects, I'd be happy to help. So just let me know, okay? So we're doing cactuses today. Cactuses are really popular right now. So these are I'm using really bright colors today. You don't have to. I know I've seen a lot of things out there in stores that are like kind of that minty green, kind of real muted colors, which are super pretty. But when I paint on my own, I tend to use really bright colors. So that's just me. You can use whatever you like. You can do traditional cactusy colors. You can do crazy colors. It doesn't matter. They're all popular right now, honestly. So I am going to be painting the tops of the cactus, and then I'll show you how I do the little flower pots. And yeah, there we go. So we'll get started. I have my I have my paint palette here. It's a mess, but I use it. I love it. I use a lot of Holbein watercolors. If you were doing a watercolor workshop, you would not have to use a watercolor paint as nice as that. It's usually not necessary. I think it's very pricey if you're buying for a whole group. So, but if, like I said, if you had any questions about what to buy, I'd be happy to let you know kind of what I use, what you could use, and all that good stuff. So I am going to get started. So as I said, watercolor is my jam. It was kind of my gateway medium into the art world. Oops. Nice job, Amanda. And I just love it. It's my go-to thing when I have a few minutes and I want to do something artsy. So actually I'm going to turn this a little bit so you can see my page here. So I did draw out in pencil the shapes of my cactuses, cacti, whatever. So there they are. And I'll just kind of show you how I roll. I keep it really simple. I do not do anything too difficult. I know a lot of artists, like watercolor artists, they are like amazing at doing like photo real stuff. And that's just not my thing. It's beautiful, and believe me, if I could just get an ounce of that, that would be great. But I really like using bright colors, simple shapes, just keep it easy and simple, kind of illustration-y. And I also love, I don't know if you noticed in my example, I love to use micron pens. So I guess I'll show you that. I love adding details with micron pens on my watercolor. It's super fun. So that's something that you can do too. So I'll get started. Let me show you kind of what technique I like. I really like using, when you're doing watercolor, basically you can either do wet paint on dry paper or wet paint on wet paper. And I really like using wet paint on wet paper. I just feel like the color moves better, and it kind of gives it a place to go, So I'm just gonna wet my brush. You can probably see it's kind of shimmery. And then I'm just gonna start, let's see, I'll start on this left one here. And so wherever it is inside the cactus, I'm gonna put some water to where it's a little bit shimmery. And if it gets to be too much and it starts to drip, I'm just going to take my paper towel and dab it up. That's what's one nice thing about watercolor. It's like if it gets too wet, you just dab it up. If it gets too dry, you add a little bit more water. It's no big deal. Let's see, so I'll move this closer. These are super fun. And one thing I've done before is each of these shapes I've done as a card. And that is fun too. So let's see. Okay, I'm gonna do this one kind of a bright green. And I wish I could remember what color this green is. But I can't remember. It is super bright green. It's like real limey. Kind of reminds me of like, I don't know, like, you know those crazy colors kids' ice cream comes in? It's like that. So I like to just do one layer of the base color. So this will be my base color. Okay. And then wherever it gathers, if I feel like it's too much, it's going to drip, I'm just going to take my paper towel. And normally I will say, I usually work a little bit flatter, but I wanted you to be able to see what I was painting. Hopefully you can see that. Scoot you closer. There, how's that? That's probably a little bit better. So yeah, I usually lay things flat, but no big deal. That's what my little easel here is for. So there's that. I'm going to add more water to these shapes. Not a ton. I don't need a puddle. I just need to kind of wet the paper a little bit so the paint kind of knows where to go. And this really does go pretty quick. So one thing about watercolor is you kind of work in layers. Or you can work in layers, let's put it that way. Okay, so I'm going to add some more green. So I'll show you kind of how I do that. I'm going to put a lot of paint on there. See how bright that green is? It's awesome. Awesome. Add a little bit more green over here. It's still wet. All right. So yeah, I've been, I guess I didn't mention before, I have been teaching paint parties for about a year. And it's been so much fun, and it's just led me into so many cool directions in the art world, and I've met so many awesome people. You know, I tell people all the time that I'm talking to about my art stuff. You know, I would not I wouldn't be here doing this fun stuff if I hadn't met up with Heidi. So I'm very appreciative of Heidi, as many of us are. I'm sure all of us are. So this whole paint party thing is just, it gets you out of your comfort zone, right? Which is not a bad thing. And it really helps you kind of grow as just a person. It's kind of crazy. It's like just a paint party, but it really is a whole lot more. So this middle one, I'm going to do kind of a purpley color. It's actually very purpley. So I wet my little cactus there, and I'm going to grab some paint and stick it in. And one thing that, if you haven't done a lot of watercolor, it's really exciting to do watercolor because you know, you put the paint on the paper, and then by the time it's dry, though, it looks totally different. So you never quite know what it's going to turn out looking like until you're like done. So that's kind of exciting. Okay, so my little squatty cactus is ready for its first, or done with its first layer. And now I'm going to do my big kind of saguaro-ish. Well, I guess it's not saguaro. More like maybe like a prickly pear cactus. I'm going to do this one. Now this one I'm going to do in my favorite color. I I don't know if other brands carry it or not, but Holbein's Opera Pink is what it's called, is my absolute favorite color. I love to paint with Opera Pink. It's so fancy. It sounds so fancy anyway. So there we go. And you might be able to see that purple is kind of running into the pink. I don't care. It doesn't matter. I'm just going to let it do its thing. It is not a big deal. There's really no way to mess it up. And the thing is, if you get too particular with watercolor, that's when things kind of go haywire. So you want to keep it loose, keep yourself open to things changing. It's kind of a good metaphor for life, you know. I think a lot of art stuff is a good metaphor for life, you know. Be patient, let things just be. Don't worry too much. It's hard to do, I know. Okay, so more Opera Pink. So yeah, I started doing watercolor, I guess it was a couple years ago. I took a watercolor class one summer. It was awesome. It was just through like continuing ed through a local community college. The gal was really good. And I was just like, oh, it was really exciting because it was one of those things where like, I think I'll really like it. And I ended up liking it even more than I thought I would, which is always a fun thing. So yeah, I had the summer. I had made a goal for myself. Oh, I guess I didn't mention, I'm a full-time special ed teacher at the moment. So yeah, I do all the paint stuff on the side, as many of us do. So here's to full-time jobs and passion projects, right? Okay, so let's see. I am done with the first base colors. So what I'm gonna do, this has to dry in order to add some more of the details. So I have my handy dandy heat gun here, which I use all the time. And I will tell you, if you do a watercolor workshop or a watercolor project at any time, having a couple of these on hand is really helpful because it kind of speeds up the process, so people can kind of keep moving. So I'm going to do that really quick. It only takes about, 10-20 seconds. Okay, so this is what we've got so far. So as you can see, it's kind of muted, and that's okay. So we're going to add some of the details that really make it look like cactuses, okay? So, and I'm just going to use the same colors. What is really what I enjoy about watercolor, one of the things, is that when you layer over something, you can only use one color, but it looks like you're using all kinds of colors because it just shows up so much easier. So let me show you kind of what I mean. That wasn't super clear. Sorry. Okay, so let's see. For my green little guy here, I'm going to load up my brush, and what is really nice about a round brush is that it has a point. So as you can see, I made the point kind of pointy, and so I'm going to add some ribs on this cactus, so it kind of looks like how they grow, where it's they have those little ridges where the spines, whatever will be. Okay, so I'm going to take my paintbrush. I hope you can see that. I'm going to make it a little bit darker, load it up with some paint so you can see that a little better. Okay, let me move it closer. Can you guys see that? So there is my first detail on my cactus. Okay, my big ones. You don't have to go crazy with these, but you can put as many as you want. You could also use a different color if you wanted to. If you wanted to do kind of a blue as an accent color, you totally could. You could use a just a darker green. I have all kinds of greens that I could use, but I like this one. So we're just going to stick with it. Okay. There we go. That should be good. Okay, now I'm going to move on to my purple. So I'm really going to load up my brush with that color. This is such a pretty purple. I think it's really got a lot of pink in it. It's nice. Okay. So, Mr. Purple Cactus, here we go. There we go. All right. Sorry, it's so quiet. Need some music or something. There we go. All right, now we're on to our pink guy, and then we'll be on to our next step after that. So, let's see. Okay, I got my pink. I'm going to start down here. So I'm just letting my brush do the work. That is one of the big things that I have learned. You don't fight it, you just let the brush do its work, and round brushes do so many things. They're so helpful. You know, you want a wider line, you just push down harder. If you want a point, you just use the tip. It's pretty exciting. So yeah, if you ever do a watercolor workshop, really you're only going to need to buy round brushes. I recommend like a 6 or a 7. Size 6 or 7. Those are usually a nice size if you're doing things like watercolor cards or like little things about this size, you know. They are my go-to. Oh, you know what? I need to tell you what paper I have. I didn't do that. There are a few brands of paper I do like, but if I'm just doing things for every day, I really like this brand of watercolor paper. Oops, sorry. It's Strathmore, and this is the, let's see, 100-pound cold press watercolor paper. It's not that expensive. It's just, you can just find it at Michael's or Hobby Lobby or wherever it is that you get your art stuff. I don't know if Walmart carries it. That's a good thought, but I'm not sure. But I will say don't chintz out too much on the paper. You don't have to have the super expensive paper like an Arches. Like that's a really expensive paper. It's great. It's beautiful. It's lovely paper. But you know, if you're just making a little cactus or watercolor card, you don't need anything too expensive, because man, oh man, but watercolor paper and paint actually can get expensive. But I will say, if you are interested in using like the tubes of watercolor, they come in, you know, about that size. Some of the ones at Michael's are okay. Some of them aren't super great. The Winsor Newton ones are usually all right. But if you like order them online, the Holbein colors, like I said, are my favorite. It seems like a lot for one tube. Sorry, I'm getting a drip. But they last forever. So let's put it this way. I've been painting for 2 years and I've never run out of a tube of paint. And they're teeny weeny. They're only like this big. So if that goes to show you, I mean, you can stretch a tube out. And with the nicer watercolor paints, they have more pigment, so you don't use as much paint. So that's one of the benefits of getting something for yourself that's a little bit nicer. So, all right, I'm gonna dry this so we can add our super fun pen details, which is my favorite part. I'm so excited. Here we go. Give me just a second. Okay, so this is what we've got so far, and it looks cute, you know, but I find that when I add the pen details, it really makes a picture like this pop. I remember the last time I did a Valentine watercolor Valentine workshop, I brought a bunch of these micron pens. This is what I love to use. So they're micron. 0.3 is the size. The let's see, the bigger the number after 0, the bigger the tip. So these are fairly small, but not too small. I recommend like a 3 or a 5 for something like this. What was I saying? Oh yeah, so I was at a watercolor workshop that I was doing at a local library, and when I brought out the micron pens, you know, they were adding their details, and it was so cute because they were like, oh, now I really like it. Like, it just really makes it pop. Okay, let me show you kind of how I do my pen details. So I use a lot of dashes. I don't do a whole lot of like just hard outlines. That's just my style. You can do it however you want, but I like doing like dash, whoop, dash, dot, dot, dot. And it doesn't have to be perfect. And then I'm going to add some details in my little cactus ribs there. All right. And something else you could do if you wanted to, you could add some little flowers on here. Maybe if I have time, I might go back and do that. Sometimes I like to just do it in the pen, so maybe I'll do that. So dash, dot, dot, dash, dash, dot, dot, dash. Alright. It can be really loose. It does not have to be exact, okay? In fact, I really like little watercolor things that kind of have the pen and then the watercolor just is kind of outside the lines, and it's just nice to not have to be in the lines all the time, right? Okay. So, let's see, I guess I'll keep going. I really want to finish the whole thing for you guys. So I'm kind of moving a little bit fast. If you ever want a few tips on using the micron pens, I'd love to help you too, so just let me know. They are so much fun. I actually, you know what's funny? What really got me started into the art world was I was interested in hand lettering. And so I got a bunch of like brush pens and stuff like that and micron pens, and so I was playing around with those, and then I saw a lot of those like florally wreaths and things like that. I was like, oh, I want to do that. I'm like, oh, I'll take a watercolor class one summer. So that's when I took the watercolor class. But if I hadn't started doing the hand lettering, I probably wouldn't have gotten here to this point either. So that really, I guess hand lettering was my gateway art medium. Okay, so I'm gonna add the little spines, and the way I do that is I just go in like little groups of 3. So I'll just go choo 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 and just kind of here and there, you know, give them a few spikes. If you want to, you can add something that kind of looks like a flower, like those cactus flowers are beautiful. My mom has a Christmas cactus that has been around forever. I'm so jealous. I'd probably kill it, so I don't. Yeah, I've never had one of my own. I kill everything plant-wise. It's pretty bad. I don't trust myself that I could even keep a cactus alive, so That's why I paint them. I don't have to keep it alive. It's just always bright and cheery. Okay, there's my spine, 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 spine. Spine, spine, spine. Doesn't have to be perfect. I mean, if you look at a cactus, it's crazy. You can't tell one spine from the next, so who's to tell it's wrong. Okay, so now we're moving on to the little flower pots, okay? And you can paint these just like I did the cactus parts. But I kind of like the contrast of the black and white planter or flower pot, whatever you want to call it, to the bright cactus. So you're more than welcome to paint the flower pot, but I'm just going to keep it black and white, and so I'm just going to make the shape super easy, not hard, basically sort of like a wide triangle. You don't have to be perfect at all. Okay, so I have my cactus flower pots here, planters, whatever you want to call them. You could leave it just plain. I like to do some like little patterny designs, so a lot of times I'll like to do stripes of some sort. I'll do like kind of a triangle chevron kind of thing. That's one thing these micron pens are super good at. It does not have to be perfect. Let me add some little circles. If you've ever done Zentangles, if you have any of those patterns, those are really fun to do in these. It's been a little while since I've done a Zentangle, so I don't have any super great ones, but I like to add a little bit of lines here to show that that's the inside of the pot. Okay, so boop. Let's see, let's do some just general cloud shapes. You can really just go crazy on these. Let's see, how about on this one? I'll do, let's just do big polka dots. I like polka dots. I don't wear a lot of polka dots, but I like drawing polka dots. Okay. So, and one thing I would love for you guys to show me if you get the inkling to do this painting, you are more than welcome to use this design and do it as acrylic. I would love to see that as acrylic. So please don't be afraid to use it as you will, however you want. All right. So one last little thing that I do like to do a lot on these little kind of whimsical watercolor pieces is I like to do some kind of lettering, and I keep it really simple. So don't let the word, lettering scare you. Pepper, hush. My dog is so upset that I'm not paying attention to her. But I love to do a little, and I have to admit, I really like doing puns. And there are a lot of good cactus puns. So let's do, okay, we'll just do something simple. So I'm going to write, let's stick together. Okay. So I like to do just simple print. Let's stick, okay. Very simple. You could get fancy, but you do not have to. Boop. Sometimes when I do watercolor workshops, people will like really freeze on the lettering. So if they ask, I'll help them out and do it. I was like, no, if I mess it up, you can't be mad at me. So they're usually like, no, it's okay. So let's see. And I just like to kind of make some of them, the downstrokes, a little bit thicker so it stands out. Da, da, da. I bet there are a lot of you guys out there that do hand lettering. So I found that I was getting a little overwhelmed with all the different kinds of like fonts and things that you can really get good at. And I just ended up finding like 2 or 3 that were kind of my go-to ones that I just do each time and go with that. It's like, ugh, it's so hard to learn all of them. I just don't have the time. So there we go. Love it. Okay, I'm going to do my favorite part. I'm going to take off the tape. That's my favorite part. Oops. My paper's coming up with the tape, but that's okay. It's just because I'm going too fast and I'm not taking my time. Any kind of painter's tape is just fine to use. And oh, I guess I didn't show you. This is like a piece of foam board. You don't have to tape it down. You definitely don't. But I like to a lot of times just because it keeps the paper in place, and I like to have something good sitting on. So there we go. What do you guys think? Oh my gosh, I had so much fun. I haven't done a video in a really long time, so I am so excited to have done this with you guys. Please let me know what you think, and I really want to see if you've done it in watercolor or acrylic, but I'd love to see your little takes on it for acrylic. I know you guys are so creative, so I'll love to see what you guys have. So thank you so much. I have a freebie for you guys. It is, I'm sure Heidi will have it in whatever information she'll send out, but it is 3 fun designs for doing a paint party that's a mommy and me paint party. So I came up with 3 designs, and some of it has a little bit of cute lettering and stuff like that too. I think you guys will love it. They're super fun. I've done a lot, well, not a lot, but a handful of mommy and me parties, and they're really fun. So enjoy. I'd love to hear from you. So yeah, if you want the 3 mommy and me designs, you just fill out the little form and shoot me your email, and you'll have access to it. So it's super exciting. So I am so glad to have been here. Thank you so much, guys. See ya.